back again. We're back. Thanks for joining in, everybody. This is the Bars Open with Beth and Greg last call. So thanks for joining again, Albert. You've probably seen a couple of these, a few of these so far we've done. Basically, we're just highlighting folks that have had incredible careers and had pretty nuts careers. Yeah. And that's what we're going to get into today. So this is number 4 of our conversations, kind of going over your background, your history, your career, like I had said. So pretty incredible. So we'll jump in. I want to recap, and thanks everybody for tuning in. I want to recap real quick. Just last time we talked about you transitioning in. We got into some of the DEA, kind of like several years into your DEA career at that point. So some of the undercover work you'd started out doing, the challenges you faced on some of that. So let's talk about kind of it's hard to talk about 10 to 15 extra years of your career or so in an hour, right? But I think we've got some pretty funny stories, some pretty incredible stories to kind of cover today. So we'll jump right in. So again, thanks to Albert Castro. I'm lucky enough to have him join. Family, he's my father-in-law, so I'm lucky to have him as a father-in-law as well. So when we kind of jumped in, we talked about quite a few things last week. And we've been doing these for a few weeks now, but you really, some of the stories are just incredible, and you think back over your career and, what are the things that kind of stand out to you when you think about having a 24-year career as a DEA agent when a department starts like that, right?
Yeah.
When you think about that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that's still in my mind is some of the cases that I made.
Yeah.
And I wondered how I survived.
Right.
And it was hairy at times. I know that once or twice I had guns put to my head, to my ear. I had one time the guy put a gun under and they always said something like, I know you're a cop or you're an informant.
Yeah.
And
how the fuck do you think through that?
That's it. See, I would always say, well, if I'm a cop, and you kill me, you'll be dead within 3 minutes after you kill me, because if I'm a cop, there's got to be other cops around watching.
Yeah.
If I'm an informant, I would have the money to buy the drugs that I'm trying to buy from you. Mm-hmm. And the guys almost always worked. He says, well, we just want to make sure. I said, yeah.
They're trying to scare you a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
See, again, let me repeat what I said once at the beginning.
Okay.
When I became a rookie police officer, my FTO, that's field training officer,
okay,
who checks me out, and at the end of the 6 months, he says, yes, he made it. No, he didn't. He's not qualified. But anyway, he told me once while we're driving around, you have to be afraid.
Yeah, you mentioned that, right?
The day that you're not afraid, that's the day you're going to be killed.
Doing any of this line of work, any law enforcement, right?
Says, right. And of course,
excuse me,
along with that is nervousness. Don't overdo the nervous. Don't make them see that you're nervous.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And to me, working undercover was a challenge.
Yeah.
I'm going to get you. That was in my thought. You're mine. You're gone.
Yeah.
Once you start dealing with me, it's a done deal. You're going to go to the pen. I knew that.
Yeah.
It was no doubt about it.
That's crazy.
So I always kept that in mind.
Yeah.
I'll stay afraid, because when you're afraid,
keep you on your toes,
it
or keep your wits toes. About you.
You're looking at his hands, you're looking at his eyes, you're looking around, because they always have guys around protecting him.
Right.
And so you try to identify when you see it. It wasn't hard to do. And so you're always, you're afraid.
Yeah.
And of course, nervousness, there is a little bit of nerve in there. And I got nervous. I'm not going to lie.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, it's a hairy thing.
I try to keep my cool.
Right.
And always I tried to intimidate the guy. And I would say, if you try to rip me off, you're dead.
Yeah.
Right? And I always had a backup, the money man, they called him.
Mm-hmm.
And it was either Rudy Gonzalez or Bobby Hernandez. Bobby lives in Yuma.
Okay.
You met him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, he was we did together quite a few cases. And with Rudy Gonzalez, and so I always had a backup.
And somebody you really trusted.
Right. And these guys were solid. So
Yeah.
that was.
You knew those guys like you said, gonna have your six and just.
They were fearless leader too.
Yeah.
You know,
Which is incredible. I mean, you just think you're not the only one that was in. I mean, so that's the other thing. How many partners do you recall having over the years as DEA?
okay, started with.
You don't need to name them all, but
No.
of course, kind of a.
6 partners. I think the longest one was with Jerry Courtney,
Okay.
who now lives in Rocky Point, Mexico.
Oh, he actually moved down to Mexico, huh?
Yeah.
Nice.
But he's a great guy.
Yeah.
A great artist, too.
Is he?
Oh, yeah. And, of course, the next one that stayed with me a long time was Dwight Stockstill. And he wanted to go undercover. So I said, you know.
He wasn't an undercover agent before that?
No.
Okay.
So he said, I need to go with you. I said, sure, you'll go with me. I'll introduce you. Yeah, but I'm a gringo. That's all right. That's okay. Money doesn't care what race you are.
Right. That's true.
So I introduced
Money's
him
money,
on a couple
right?
of cases. Yes, sir. And he worked real well. He was my money man.
There you go.
And he was big. He's a big guy.
Yeah.
He had big old arms. And he always looked very serious at the guys when I'm negotiating. And the guy would look at
Just
him.
like
and,
intimidate, trying to intimidate.
And the guy, the crook would look at him and then look at me. And then he'd go, what's with him? Just watching
an eye. Yeah.
So, yeah, it was good.
That's cool. That's awesome.
He lives in North Carolina.
Yeah. That's where he is now.
Yeah, that's when he retired. That's where he's from.
Okay, that's awesome. So that's interesting because you think about all the people that you came across, just in your career because you worked with a lot of different agencies.
Oh,
so you worked with the FBI. You worked with of course Customs and and then the local police departments. We've got a pretty funny story we'll tell here in a second.
Yeah, the local police department was great.
Yeah.
And the reason we used them because if we were working a case and the agents were stationed around looking suspicious by the people that lived in the area, they would call the police.
Okay.
And in order not to burn the case, as we call it, the police that were assigned to us would get on the radio, stay away,
Okay. So they could hold them back or whatever. Yeah. They'd know that there's something else going on. That's important to have that interagency kind of work, right?
Exactly.
So one of the funny stories you've told me in the past is you and Rudy were working a case where I'll have you tell the story. It's funny as shit. You had the mechanic.
Oh yeah,
where he had a
that
great
was a
sale.
Funny case. Yeah, we were driving around. It was a slow week. We had not had a case in 1 week. We always had 2 or 3 cases going a month.
Yeah.
Sometimes 4 cases.
Okay, that was going to be another question. It's like, how many cases do you have? What was your caseload? So that
3 to 4 cases a month.
All right.
We were always busy, always. And
there's a lot of drug dealing happening.
This was a slow week.
Okay.
And we just driving around, checking out addresses and checking the cars that they were driving at the different bars. We knew what bars they hung out, so we wanted to see who was meeting who and all that.
I mean, you just go and have a drink and just
we were going by there on this one street in South. I guess it's South San Antonio. Yeah. Anyway, and Rudy goes, I've heard that. That's a mechanic there. Yeah, I see he's got a car up on change. You go, yeah, I heard he does heroin. I says, as an informant told me, but he didn't confirm it.
He just kind of heard it through the.
I said, why don't we just drive up and check it out?
Yeah.
He says, you sure? Yeah. So I'm driving my Continental. It was a white Signature Series, the kind that fancy.
Talks to you and all that other shit.
And so we drive up the driveway and we go up, and he come out right away. And he looks around all over the place, and he goes, never said a word, just goes like, what?
Yeah.
And so we made the sign, we pointed to the arm like that. So he walks up to the window, says, so you want some of that good stuff, huh? I said, yeah. Well, I'll be good.
He didn't question like anything. You're just a random dude a couple of guys off the street.
He says, how much? If he looked at the car, he knew we had the money.
As a drug dealer, if I was a drug dealer, I think I might want to have a little bit more caution, I guess. Right?
Yeah, exactly. But this guy he was greedy.
Yeah.
So he says, how much do you want? I says, well, how much can you do? He says, I can do ounces. I says, is it good stuff? He said, you can cut it at least 2 or 3 times, which is not that great.
Yeah.
But anyway, I said, well, we can take two 2 ounces? Yeah. Come on in. So we walk into the...
It's like you're getting a fucking buying a Coke or something.
Like buying pizza.
Yeah.
So we walk into the living room, and the first thing I see sitting right up across from the door as we entered was 2 narcotic guys from the SAPD sitting there. And they looked at us, and then I looked to my right, and there's 2 DPS narcotic guys sitting on the couch. And Rudy and I looked at each other. We almost broke out in a laughter. I said, "Gee, this guy's got the house full of narcs."
He has no idea.
So he says, "Just make yourself at home. Guys, give me some time. It take me about 30 minutes or so to go get it. And I'll bring you all some tacos."
On top of it. So, this guy's a salesman. He's a salesman, isn't he?
Oh, this guy.
He's like he's bringing it all. Tacos.
And by the way, he was a mechanic. But anyway, he leaves. And when he leaves, we start looking for things around, signs of this, that, and the other. We found our address book with phone numbers and names. Everybody's taking notes and everything else. And then we looked at each other. We all cracked up.
Yeah, you would. I mean,
everybody, we were all laughing. And I said, "Well, guys, goodbye. It's all yours." And we walked out. And he got busted later. But, man, we were going in the car, left all the way back to the office.
That's hilarious. See, that's the stupidity. That's kind of the... We've talked about this in the past. It's like, I mean, how do you go about, just some of the stories you've told? And again, we've got some more. Today's going to be kind of like storytelling session today because there's some pretty fun ones. Just the dumb shit people do. Like, I mean, that's because you see like, okay, so there's TV shows that kind of glamorize it a little bit, right? And it's like, oh, they're rich and they're all this. But most of the people are not the rich, super rich Escobars, and it's people dealing 2 or 3 ounces of this or that.
And we always ask for a quantity to see if you could come up with it, because we classified, I shouldn't say this, but we classified
based on weights or something like that, on how much. And that would make sense. So if you had 100 pounds of marijuana, it's worth a class something felony or something like that. Yeah.
So, it also had to do with the sentencing.
Okay. So if you have, is it because it's intent to distribute versus something?
It's possession. It's the first charge is possession.
All right.
Second charge is distribution, which is he's selling it to us. Distribution. The next one, if there's 2 or more, is conspiracy.
That's where the case. Okay.
Yeah. And so, by the time it's all over and done, he's looking at 45 to 60 years in prison.
Because you've got 3 or 4 more charges against you.
Exactly.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So, so Albert back in the day was credited with the largest cocaine seizure. Was that in San Antonio history?
Yes.
At that time,
yes.
So how big of a bust? Like, what did it take to get a bust like that? When you're saying largest, like
I tell you, that was a very hard case. It took 18 months of undercover work. Met with a guy at different places for 18 months.
Yeah.
He wanted to do it this way. We wanted to do it that way. And every time we met, we tried to decide how we're going to do it and all that. But at the end, he decided to bring it to me instead of me. So,
instead of you going to him kind of thing? Okay.
So we ended up seizing 110 pounds
of cocaine,
pure cocaine.
Holy shit! Yeah. So what's it like back then? What was the value of something like
about
that?
$1.5 million, $2 million.
That's crazy. I mean, I've seen like current when they're trying to
not anymore. Though. You can get an ounce of cocaine, because back then an ounce of cocaine went anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 an ounce.
Okay, that's crazy.
So
and now it's exponential.
And if it's very pure, it goes up to $3,000 an ounce.
Okay. So it just depends on how many times it's made or cut.
No, you don't cut cocaine but once.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
Cocaine gets ruined if you cut it more than once. Okay. And some of these idiots did it, though.
Because they're just trying to spread it out as much as they can.
And whoever uses it gets a kick at that time, but it doesn't last because it's been cut too many times or whatever. So you ruin the cocaine. So.
Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. Just kind of funny things, right? I mean, some of those things. Yeah. So I asked him earlier if you've ever gotten any famous people, and said not necessarily famous, but just bad people, famous for being drug dealers.
Yeah, this guy. I don't know
if that's a good way to be famous. Infamous, maybe?
Yeah, this guy on that cocaine at one time had worked for the CIA.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
What, he just
because at that
was he
time,
an agent, like he worked, or he was an informant?
no, he was
a
probably an informant.
Okay,
But I know he had ties to the CIA.
Okay,
At the time that Daniel Ortega was the president of Nicaragua,
okay,
and he brought in Russians and Cubans to run the country with him, and everybody had to wear these gray uniforms.
Interesting.
For 3 days, and then you would change and would wear black uniforms, like overalls.
Yeah.
Overall. That was the law. And if you violated it, you didn't get X number of food.
Like the people in the country, like the citizens?
Yeah.
How to do that?
Yes.
Oh,
that was what, under Daniel Ortega. It was socialistic.
Yeah, that is absolutely, yeah.
Okay. And they had to get in line to get groceries and all that.
To get anything.
Yeah. So, but then, of course, he finally got defeated by Mrs. The lady president, and I can't think. Chamorro.
Okay.
Chamorro defeated the guy, and he ran off the Cubans and the Russians, except the ones that had gotten married to Nicaraguan girls. He'd let them stay.
Okay.
And a whole bunch of Cubans had stayed, who then later on got together and opened up a tobacco type company, and now they're exporting tobacco.
Interesting. How they switched over. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. So when you were there's a funny story about you guys were chasing after somebody.
Yeah.
And comical.
Oh yeah. Here. Okay. We had been watching these
This is funny.
people for a while, and then the two smugglers got the dope and were going to deliver it. I believe they said they were going to deliver it to Corpus. And so we started following them, and they noticed that they were being followed. And they took off, and we took off. And Fred Turner, my rabbi, was a front lead car.
Okay.
And he's driving. We're doing 65.
Were you in the car with him at the time?
Yeah, I was in the car with him. And he's driving 65, 70 miles an hour and bouncing all over the place. And I'm trying to hang on for dear life. And he's got a gun in one hand and
he's driving
the other hand. And he's trying to use the radio. And he gave it to me. So when he needed it, he says I would give him the radio to talk. And
were you like a junior agent at that point, or something like you've been around for a long time?
No, I was a police officer assigned to them.
Oh, this is pre-DEA. Okay.
Yeah. And so he starts.
It's worse.
He starts shooting, and the next thing I know, he gets the radio from me, and he goes, shots fired, they're firing at me. And you could see sparks hitting. And I said, wow. And so finally...
So you're just like, what the... what's going on here?
Yeah, exactly. And all of a sudden, Tom Gilbert, who was a great friend of mine, a customs agent, passes us on. He had a Camaro. He passed us up, and they finally stopped the guys, arrested the guys and all that. And they couldn't find a gun. And so
what were you guys? What was he thinking? They're like ditching. They ditched the gun somewhere or something.
So one of the agents goes, Fred, that was his first name. Fred, we didn't find a gun. Well, they must have thrown it out. So Tom Gilbert walks over to the car and calls EJ, and he come over, and they started laughing. And I says, what's up? He says, he was shooting himself. He was hitting his car. Oh, no. So, Fred, they weren't shooting at you. You were shooting your own car,
because he's going.
Yeah. So, of course, he was embarrassed and all that.
Yeah.
And he says, this does not get out anybody. I'm the boss, and I'm saying this does not get out to anybody.
Hilarious. Shooting his own goddamn car.
He shot his own car. So,
that's funny.
And then I'm sitting there. Whew, that was funny.
Yeah, you're going 70 miles an hour. You think you're actually getting shot at.
Yeah.
But your senses are so crazy. That's nuts. So, I'd mentioned earlier, you became quite the gardener when you were at home in your off time. So we'll kind of shift a minute here real quick. Just to your off times. Again, I think that's important because it wasn't always just like on the job.
No.
You were a homebody. You were at home,
actually,
family man.
It was my therapy.
Yeah.
It was my therapy. And the guys who, at the end, if there was nothing going, they would go to the nearest bar for happy hour.
Yeah.
I'd go home.
Right.
Because
I
I spend hours and hours with these guys. I want to spend
sitting in cars. And
So I would go home, and I loved gardening. In fact, right now, I got some nice gardens.
Yeah, he's got some nice, yeah.
But anyway, I would go home, and that was my therapy. I was, to relax,
spend time.
relax, come down.
Yeah.
And my adrenaline stopped at that point, instead of gardening and all that. And
just relax.
Oh, yeah.
Just be with the family and cook.
Yeah. Barbecue. I barbecued a lot.
Yeah.
Because my wife says, you got to do some cooking. I said,
he's quite the accomplished.
I had a wonderful wife. Wonderful.
Absolutely. Iris was amazing.
Yeah, she backed me up. Never complained, because many times I would call her, hey, get the kids ready. We're going to go eat out, all right? And halfway to home, I would get a call. And I would have to call her, babe, I can't make it. You go with the kids. And she'd get angry, of course, disappointed more than anything else.
That's really,
But that was natural, and I knew that. But she always backed me up. Whatever you do, it's your job.
Amazing.
It's your job.
She was an absolutely amazing woman. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Many times I left her at the altar, as we say in DEA. You call and make plans, and then you have to break.
Damn it!
So you say we left her at the altar.
Yeah, and that's the thing with that job. It's really
it's not
24/7.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it's just whenever things are happening, they go down. You've got to be ready, because unfortunately, drug dealers aren't. They don't work on a regular schedule.
I had one working undercover on this one guy.
Yeah.
Who before him, because we would knew who he was, and our guy surveillance would follow him. He always went to church, and went in, and then came out, and then coming to meet me every time that I was going to meet.
First,
he would go to church first and pray
that he wasn't going to get arrested by a DEA agent.
Yeah. So the guys would, you'd have one of the guys who. At this time, we had a couple of good female agents.
Okay.
And they would go in, making like they were parishioners or whatever. And every time, we met 4 or 5 times, each and every time he'd go to the church before coming over to meet me. And I said, well, good. So when we busted him, I says, all that praying, you better keep on doing it, because you're going to the joint, as we call it.
Yeah.
And you're going to need to pray a lot.
Jeez. Yeah, he's going to have to keep on hoping his prayers were answered at some point. He didn't get an insane sentence.
Yeah, no. I'll tell you, there's so many things that happened while I was. One of the compliments I ever got was from this one female drug dealer.
Yeah,
and I was there. My wife wanted to go see that he had never been to
a case,
so
to a court case,
and I was going to testify, and she and a semi-professional football player were the 2 defendants on it.
Yeah.
And she decided not to fight it because
she was busted.
She was busted. And, when she found out I was a undercover agent, she says, pled guilty, hoping that instead of getting the 45 years she was facing, and they did, it worked. They got 15 instead of 45.
Yeah.
And as she was going out, she stopped, smiled at me. He says, damn, you're good. And he kept on walking.
So that's the thing. It's like when you get a compliment from like the bad guy, right? Yeah. That's probably a better that's better acknowledgement than like getting any award or
but
something.
I'll never
like
forget her face. She looked at me real and he smiles. He says, damn, you're good. Because we met 3 times by the time we busted her,
Yeah.
And the delivery was in the bathroom of the hospital downtown.
You mentioned that. Yeah, that's hilarious, dude.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. So there's other ones that are kind of challenging, and you've mentioned this before, and you mentioned this as part of a bust you did that was in Mississippi. We talked about that last time, the sheriff. Right. But there was another one where you had to bust a lieutenant from Alice, Texas. Yes. And it's hard, because busting another fellow law enforcement agent.
You want nothing better, nothing more than to bust a dirty cop.
Okay. And
this guy's a lieutenant, and he's in charge of narcotics.
Oh.
And he would, when the Border Patrol, there's a Border Patrol checkpoint about 15 miles south of Alice.
Yeah.
And when they would make a bust, they would call, if it was under, if it was under 300 pounds, they would call the city.
Okay.
Alice PD. And they give him the dope and give him the case.
All right.
If it was more than 500 pounds, DEA would come in.
Okay, so that brings down your caseloads and stuff like that.
So this guy would take, let's say they seized 200 pounds.
Yeah.
And they would call it, and he would go and 2 of his guys. The 2 of the guys didn't know what was going on. The lieutenant says, take it to the barn out there. We'll have to burn it later.
Yeah.
And he would keep, out of the 200, he would keep 75 pounds.
Oh, shit. And then because he's just writing it off as if it was going to be burned or whatever.
Yeah,
Anyway.
yeah. So then he would burn the rest because that's his.
And then he would write in it,
But then
forge the
he kept
document.
it. And so the informant was in jail for, I think, drunk driving.
Okay.
And he wanted a break because his wife was pregnant and he wanted to be home when.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So the two things happened at the jail. This is one of them. He called. We arrested somebody. It's 5 or 6. I was going to jail with 4 defendants, and the jail guard goes, "Hey, here's DEA," and he heard that. He was in a holding cell, about across the room.
Okay.
So the old, psst, psst, and of course the old, who, me?
Mm-hmm.
So I says, "What's up?" He says, you can give me out of jail. I'll give you a dirty cup." And I says, "Really?" He says, "Yes, but you need to get me out. My wife's pregnant. I want to be home. She's due any day now."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "What they got you for?" "DUI." I says, "Well, I'll get you out. We'll go to the magistrate, the night guy."
Yeah.
And so they did. I told the jailer, "Get him. I'm going to take him to them." So we go, and I tell the judge there sitting.
Real quick, does your authority supersede the local PDs
Yeah.
in those? Okay,
Yeah.
because you're a federal agent.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I go to the judge, and he says, "What's up?" And the judge knew me because I had seen him before many times.
Okay.
So, "What's up, Castro?" I said, "Well, I've got an informant here that got into a little bit of a bind, and he needs to be out because we're working a case." We hadn't started the case, but I said, "We're working a case, and this would jeopardize the case." "All right, well, what is he in for?" I says, "DUI, but he says he wasn't really drunk."
Yeah.
So the judge go, "Well, all right." He bangs it out, signs a paper. "You report to me. You report to him at least every other day. You fail, you're going back to jail." "Yes, sir." So I says, "All right, let's go outside. Let's go sit down.
Let's talk."
Tell me what."
Yeah.
So he tells me there's this lieutenant in Alice that's selling big time marijuana, and I can introduce you to the guy. I says, "Are you sure he's a lieutenant?" "Yeah, he's got a badge, the whole worry." I says, "How did you meet him?" He says, I did a run for him."
Oh, okay. So
I
the
says,
guy
"Are
actually,
you from Alice?" "Well, I used to be in Alice. Now I live here in San Antonio." He says, "But when I was in Alice, I did 1 or 2 runs for him. I don't know how much it was. I never asked. They just said, take this car and park it and walk away." I says, "So that's what he did." So I says, "Okay, let's do it." So 3 days later, he makes a phone call, talks to the guy, and he tells him he's got a good customer from Dallas
okay.
that's needing a good amount of marijuana. And he's got the cash because I've seen it, he tells the guy. So he says, "Well, we'll bring him over. Let's talk about it." So we go down there. He introduces me in some bar on the south side of town. And he looks at me and he says, "You got any identification?" I used to have false identification. I said, "Yeah, sure." So he looks at it. It's a driver's license. He says, "Okay." He says, "Any else?" I said, "Well, no, that's the only one identification. I just, I was in the joints. I lost everything that I had."
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah? What were you in the joint for?" He says, "Well, the first time I was in jail was for assault with intent to commit murder."
So this is this is how incredible, like, having to be an undercover agent is you had an entire backstory.
Yes.
All built up.
Right. And the name was from a real drug dealer that had gotten out.
Yeah, you don't need to mention that right now. But yeah,
But
I mean,
then-
that, you can talk about
yeah,
that, but don't mention the name.
And so he looked at it and he says, "So how much do you want?" He says, "Well, I'd like 1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
"I don't have 1,000 pounds right now." He says, I can maybe
1,000
come up
pounds?
with 1,000,
Holy
but
shit.
I need time. I says, "No, I don't have time." He says, "Well, go back. Let me do something. Give me your phone number." And I gave him undercover phone number.
Yeah.
"And I'll call you."
What do you have, like an undercover phone number
Yeah.
answering service
Yeah.
or something?
Oh, we used it quite a bit.
Like, did somebody just answer the phone? Hi.
I was like in one case, I was supposed to be from Albuquerque, New Mexico. So
Yeah.
I gave him the phone number from Albuquerque, New Mexico. He would call Albuquerque, New Mexico, but it would ring in San Antonio. "Hello."
That's crazy.
Yeah. But anyway, that secretary would always answer,
Yeah.
and she knew, we were.
She played the part
Oh
too.
yeah, yeah.
That's amazing.
So anyway, I waited. 2 days went by and nothing. And finally, on the third day, he still hadn't called. I called the informant and said, what's going on? He hadn't called. He said, well, let me call. So he calls the bad guy, the lieutenant.
Yeah.
And he says, well, I'm trying to get 1,000 pounds for him, but so far all I got now is 500 or 600 pounds. Well, let me tell him if he wants that. He says, is he in Dallas? I said, yeah. He says, I won't deliver to Dallas. He says he'll meet you halfway, which is San Antonio.
Oh, so you're like, I don't even have to go out of town for this one.
Yeah. So he said, well, tell him about that, what I've got, and see if he agrees. And so he did. And I called him. He said, tell him to bring it. What the heck? There's a storage unit as you come into San Antonio on the old Highway 83.
Yeah.
As you come into Cross Roosevelt Avenue, right there's a storage place. I'll take it there because I want to put it in storage. So he tells the guy didn't snap. I want to put it in storage. I'm from Dallas. Why would I want to put it in
storage in San Antonio?
But
yeah, it's that click.
And I said,
it failed to fire.
I thought, oh shit, I screwed up there. But he didn't catch it, so that was good. So he agreed to bring it. And so he shows up. We bust the guy and a school teacher, elementary school teacher that was with him. And it was a very unique thing because he had a pickup truck with one of those diesel,
like the
tanks
in the back. Okay.
And takes out the screws, takes the top off, and there it was, 600 pounds.
All right in there.
Bingo.
That's crazy.
And then all, you know what, hits the fan because the mayor of Alice, when he finds out that newspaper,
that their
whole thing
lieutenant just got
page stuff
from their DEA or their drug enforcement.
And you'll see the clippings that are in there about it.
Yeah.
He wants an investigation of the police department.
That's crazy.
And they wanted to subpoena me. And, of course, my boss at that time was, he died. He just passed away here. But anyway, I won't mention his name, but wouldn't have it. He said, because that means I would have to say that I introduced by an informant, which then the defense would want the informant and all that.
Yeah.
So he says...
Because you need to protect the informant as well.
Always.
That dude would get killed in a second if they found out, right?
Always. So when they showed up at the office with a subpoena, the boss told him, he said, well, he's not here. He's in El Paso. He says, when is he coming back? Whenever he finished the investigation. Could be a week, could be 2 weeks, who knows? So he went back empty-handed. So that I didn't have to.
That's good.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening with that lieutenant? He get locked up for a long time.
Oh, yeah. He got the usual that almost...
But any other drug dealer...
Well, one of the charges was official corruption.
That's what I'm saying. I was going to ask, is it more severe because you are a law enforcement?
10 years just on that charge.
Additional, okay.
10 years. And then you have the conspiracy because it was him and another guy, and the law is 2 or more is a conspiracy. Right. So that's 15 years.
And then the number, the pounds
possession
of drugs
was 15 years. And then sale or distribution, another. So he was looking at about 60 years of.
Jesus.
But he didn't. I think he pre-bargained out of it. I think he only served about, if I recall correctly, 10 or 11 years out of the sentence because they cut it down because of the plea bargaining stuff.
Yeah.
So it was. I don't care as long as he goes down.
Right. And that's the key. It's like you said. It's even. Is it worse that you're in law enforcement? That you've taken a sworn oath, to the United States and to your communities and everything else, and then
that's right.
It's even more.
And I'll tell you what, you take a note when you go to the DEA because of the amount of money you'll be.
That's what I was going to say. He said
drugs will be around.
Pictures that you have, with millions of dollars in front of you.
Yeah.
If you didn't have the backbone that you had, some people would be swayed by that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just skim a little bit. Just skim a little bit.
It's like they trusted me with $2 million.
Right.
Cash. Huge amount of money. You see the picture. I got a picture of it in those clippings.
That's life-changing money for somebody. It's insane.
To me, I put the money was in the safe in the office, and I slept in the office.
Yeah, because it's $2 million.
Me and 4 other guys, we slept in it.
Yeah.
We're going to send out hamburgers and we stayed all night long until we had to show it, and then bingo.
And then you put it back in lockup afterwards again, right?
And then the next day, about 6 of us take it back to the bank who had loaned us the money.
Yeah, you basically had an armed security team
Yeah,
around all of you guys. Yeah. No, that's incredible because you think about that. Yeah. And that's, I think, where I know you've talked about it in the past is with me anyway, is some of the corruption that happens like down in Mexico and some of the other countries, because those guys make what? Pennies.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
To be in their
agent
Mex
in
feds.
Mexico at that time was making $200 a month.
Right. So think about that.
Dollars. And now keep in mind that of course there's 12 pesos to one. It's still
not a lot of money.
not a lot of money.
Right. And then
and the other thing is the drug dealers would come up to the agent, confront the guy wherever he was, and he says, you need to work with us. This is the way they used to say it. You need to work with us. So you either want plomo or plata, lead or silver.
okay.
So you say no, plata, means I'll take the money. Or you say, no, I don't want to do it.
They're just going to kill you right there anyway.
They're going
to kill you and your family and everything else, right?
You're going to get a bunch of lead in your body.
Right.
So,
which is scary as shit.
So most of the time, that's what happens, the corruption. But it goes all the way up into the big shots in government.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and how to, that's an entirely different, conversation to have. But that's where you can see some of, like you said, a $2 million sitting in front of a 25-year-old Mex Fed. It's like
he'd probably shoot me and take the money.
That's right. I mean, that's incredible. So I know there was you kind of going down that route a little bit is you worked quite a bit down in Mexico.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like how did you work with the
Mex Feds? But we let me put it this way. We were didn't tell them everything or who we're working on because maybe they were on the payroll of the guy we're working on. So we always said we have a case and they would say, we'll bring it in. We'll do it. And I'll give you an example.
Because you could blow your everything.
Yeah. Right? I made a couple of buys from this one guy in Laredo. All right. Okay. And the heroin turned out to be pretty good. So then when I asked the amount, I wanted a pound, 16 ounces, and he wanted $80,000 for that 1 pound. But the guy that had it wouldn't come across with it.
Okay.
So I said, well, if you won't come across, if Muhammad doesn't come to the mount comes to Muhammad. I'll go across. And the guys, and so I tell my man what I'm going to do. And are you sure you want to do that? Yeah, but I want you guys to go with me across.
Yeah, you can't be by yourself out there.
Yeah. I'm going into Mexico, and I don't know who the next feds are. And EJ Lavelle was from Laredo. He says, well, I know there's 8 of them, but I know 6 only of them. I don't know about the other 2. They're newcomers.
Okay.
But let's do it. So we had to get permission to get into Mexico, do an enforcement case in Mexico.
Okay. So you have to be working with
the next feds.
Next feds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it worked that way. We crossed the cross. We went in there. The guy showed up, and there was about 2 blocks to the right of where we were was a house of ill repute.
A house of ill repute. Okay.
Okay. And the girls were hanging out in the wall. Hey, hello, half naked and all that. And the bad guy goes, after we're done, we'll go have some fun with those girls. I says, okay. I says, where? I need to see the dope. Well, do you have the money? Yeah. And he already saw it, meaning the informant. And the informant said, yeah, it's all there. I counted it. It's all there. Believe me. So I said, well, here's the dope. He opens the trunk. And I gave the busing. I had a cap on. I take off my cap. That meant hit us. Okay. Well, they hit us. But the Mex Fed didn't know I was a federal agent, and they beat the crap out of me.
Oh shit!
And finally, somebody said, "Hey, hold it! He's the undercover agent. He's an agent." Oh shit!
You're getting your ass kicked.
My mouth.
That makes it look real.
Yeah. My mouth was starting to swell. My eye was starting to close. They beat the crap out of me. Then they say, apologize. I'll buy you a steak dinner.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, that's going to affect this.
Rocky Balboa or whatever.
So I said, geez, guys. She said, why did you take so long in making him stop? So
that's interesting. So you started going down there and working down in Mexico.
Laredo, Mexico.
And there's an interesting connection between you and I want to call him a famous agent because of what happened to him. And there's a recent show out on Netflix. It's called Narcos.
Oh,
right?
okay.
And we've had this conversation, and it talks about the DEA agent Kiki Camarena.
Yeah.
And
he was a great agent.
so the key with this is that you were his training.
Well, not really training, but we worked together on a
worked
case,
together,
and I had to tell him what to do, how I wanted it done.
Okay.
I wanted to do it to be both of us be safe.
All right.
So we sat down and we talked about it over a beer. In the long term, I says, "Here's what you're going to do. Here's what you don't say this, don't do that." You know.
So you kind of just help him. So you're basically training.
yeah.
When you're training him, but you've already had quite a history being an undercover agent.
Yeah.
Right, when he came in.
Yes. He was still a police officer assigned to the office.
Oh, so so he wasn't in. So did he have kind of a career like where he went from a police officer to the DEA?
DEA, yeah.
Okay, so that's where that jump over happens.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting because when you explained a case to me earlier where it was kind of like your first introduction to him.
Yeah.
Right, and where you go over that real quick, just kind of like what you talked about and how he kind of came in and how he was just really good at being undercover, I guess.
Yeah,
Really the key.
yeah. He was my money man.
Okay.
And I told the old man that the money, I had the money, but it was not right there. It was in another hotel. And the guy said, well, call him. So we had already told Kike and the other guys, the other agents, that we going to wait 10 to 15 minutes after I make the call to show that he had to drive from wherever he was to where I was at. He's actually next door. All right. So sure enough, we waited about 15 minutes. He knocks on the door. The guy grabs his gun. Says, if it's not the police, because if it was a Mex Fest, they would have knocked the door down. They wouldn't have knocked.
Right.
And he goes, oh, yeah, puts his gun back in there. So I open the door, and it's Kike. So he goes, hey, ¿qué pasó? I said, what's happening? I said, well, we're ready to do the deal, Kike. You got the money? Yeah, I got the money. Is it safe? And I told him to act like suspicious of everything. He says, yeah, it's only him. His sons have the dope. Well, okay, if you say so, here it is. And so I showed him. It's a briefcase, a small carry-on, like the ones you put on the back.
Yeah.
Canvas, though. I open it up, and it's just stacked full of Mexican currency. I mean, stacked. The guy looks at it. He picks at the bottom, pulls out a bundle, checks it, puts it back, sheets down again under the very bottom.
Make sure it's not paper or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Then he calls his boys, and the bust took place.
That's awesome.
And he played a good role.
Yeah.
The nervousness, he looking around, is it safe? The questions he asks. We had already schooled all of that up.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's important when you start thinking about like, that's how he got into it, and that's where, did you work any other cases with him?
No,
that was
because after that I went into the interior of Mexico.
So you went farther down.
Yeah, and he was just assigned to the office on the border.
Okay.
So, in San Luis Rio Colorado, Mexico is Sonora. Across the line is San Luis, Arizona.
Okay.
And so.
So he would work there, and you were, like you said, interior Mexico.
Yeah, I went back into the interior. They busted the source for that family in Hermosillo, which is about 60 miles further down into the interior along the coast.
Okay. So that was because that was the father, his sons, and then their wives.
Yeah, they all knew what was going on. So,
right.
Yeah,
because that's the conspiracy portion of it again.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Like,
but in Mexico, there's no
different.
conspiracy.
Yeah, it's either you're a drug dealer, you got busted, and that's it.
They're going to rip the daylights out of you, and they don't care about conspiracy or anything. You're going to go
you're
for
done.
20 years.
You're done.
Yep. And this is the beauty of our system of justice.
Yeah.
In Mazatlan, I was there for a week. Beautiful time. It hadn't been discovered yet by the tourists. It was just a gorgeous virgin city. Beautiful. There was a shootout. With one of our agents in a Winnebago working undercover in the base of the mountains. And they were attacked by about 20 or there's supposedly 20 to 25 bad guys shooting. They wanted the money. They didn't have the dope.
Okay.
And they had to back out. And Rogers, his first name, I won't use his last name. Roger got hit on the eye, came out by the ear, the bullet.
It didn't kill him, though?
No.
Oh, jeez.
But anyway, so it so happens there was 2 trucks with soldiers on the highway heard the shooting, because they're all 20 or 25 when we're opening. That Winnebago looked like a sieve.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, they heard and they got there. The Mexicans identified themselves, told them what happened, and the army just like ants went into the woods.
And just hunted.
They picked up anybody that moved.
Yeah.
Well, it so happened that they didn't get this. They got these guys, and their jail has got about a 10-foot brick wall all the way around, or maybe 12 foot, and they put them all along that wall, naked, which is totally not done in this.
It's not machismo or whatever.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. They're all naked. They're all sitting there shivering because it was cold. Sitting there. And a federal agent busted a guy at the airport with a kilo of cocaine. They brought him in there naked and put him along with the other guys. And they were starting to interview each individual of the shooters.
Yeah.
And it came time to this one guy that had busted at the airport, but he had been talking to the other prisoners, to the other defendants, and he knew all what had happened, all that, and how much they were being paid. So when he got this in there and they slapped him around a while time, says, "What was your role?" He says, "The only role I had was to shoot at that
Winnebago or whatever.
Winnebago, yeah, just shooting. But then my gun jammed. I didn't shoot but about 2 or 3 times only." He was trying to,
He's trying to walk it back, yeah.
So they had slapped him around. And so, by the way, the agent that arrested him walks in. "Where's my prisoner?" "What prisoner?" "I had a prisoner out there." "There he is. What's he doing in here?" The guy was confessing to a crime that had nothing to do with it, because he was afraid he was going to get killed by the next
I
man.
follow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the beauty of our system. You don't do that, number one. Number two, you got to advise them of his rights. And
they're down there. You're just you're guilty until you're proven
That's
innocent.
exactly right.
There,
You're guilty
right?
until you prove me. So the guy said, "That's my prisoner."
Yeah.
A bunch of idiots. He says, "Epale, wait a minute. We didn't know he was in there."
But the guy he confessed to it because he just heard all the stories about I was shooting.
It's his
stuff.
fault, not ours.
And he had no idea.
No,
That's crazy. How did that? So after that happened, when because you were an active agent at that point, how did his death change? Did it change anything of the work, or did it make it?
No.
Did you press harder?
No, press harder. Yes.
Okay.
All right. And a bunch of us Hispanic agents went into Mexico. We're knocking doors down and all that, looking for Kike.
Okay.
And of course, they found him dead.
Yeah.
But they did great work. Jaime Kirkendall, who's now retired, who was from Laredo and lives in Laredo, Jaime was the agent in charge in, I believe, Guadalajara. And they arrested one of his agents and threw him in jail. The local police did, because he was going around knocking doors and all that.
Yeah.
And somebody called and they got him in. And Jaime Kirkendall went in there and says, "That's my man, release him." Now he's arrested. He pulls out his gun. "I think you want to release him." "Si, senor."
Like they were, yeah. He had your backs. He was the
Great guy. Speaks fluent Spanish.
Yeah.
Jaime Kirkendall. Loves to sing.
Yeah.
Oh, loves to sing Mexican songs. Because he was in Mexico for a long time.
Yeah. But it did, it sucks at the ending for him, but it really did.
He's a legend, really, Jaime.
Is he?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome.
He was a hell
You
of a
start thinking about the career and the people you've met. We're going to wrap this one up here because we've been going for about an hour, but you start thinking about it. It's just incredible, and there's 100 more stories just like the ones we talked about today.
I could tell you, I could go on for.
Oh yeah, and I'm lucky enough that I get to hear a lot of them. Yeah. And I get to hear some of the background, and there's more details to these stories that we just aren't putting out here. That's totally because
how we got it from point A, the introduction, to the meetings at different places, like on that 18-month investigation. Everybody kept saying, Al, it's dead. He's not going to do it. Forget about it.
You kept pushing.
I'm going to do it. And
Yeah.
18 months. It took 18 months, but it was one of the largest cocaine seizures in 1985.
Right. Which is incredible, you know, and you think about that. So
I think there's a clipping in those papers I gave.
I'll find it. Once we start I'll start posting some of that as well. Just kind of just like photos of it. Public record and all that.
Yeah, it was in
the newspapers,
so,
right?
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's really cool. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. I appreciate all you guys for watching. I want to say thank you to our military, our first responders, frontline folks, and all of you. Thank you so much. This is The Bar is Open. Last call with my guest, Albert Castro. You guys have a great night. Thanks so much.